Well, it was the first few days of college, and I saw this really hot-looking girl walk across the campus numbers of times, surrounded by droves of guys.
Mm-hmm, sure.
And thought, man, I'd really like to meet her, but I never thought I ever would. And then one day I did.
Remember when we were so poor, being at college, and we our favorite place to go was McDonald's, and so this was
Part of it was because I worked there and I got discounts.
that's true. And so after, I think it was after a midweek service or something, we went there. I ordered a hamburger and you ordered something, and I took a bite and I thought, well, you know, for McDonald's it's not so bad. You don't get you don't get a hamburger the first bite maybe. After about the third bite though, I realized that something was wrong, so I opened up my hamburger, and of course you had ordered it with no hamburger at all.
How do you know that?
Yeah, because I know you now.
Maybe you just ate it all in one
Then
bite.
I didn't know you. Then I thought that, oh, this is how it's going to be. We've got a little practical joker here. So, but we had fun.
We met the end of September,
Mm-hmm.
and we got engaged in December.
Right. It was a long courtship. And then we got married the following June. We started out just like any other couple. We were in love. Couldn't wait to start our life together, have a family, and start in the ministry that God had called us to. We just started off on our little happy life together. Sherry was our firstborn, and she was the delight of our life. She was such a good baby, and she just made us have such joy in our home. And then Rochelle came along, and she was exactly the same. She was such a good baby, but she was so different. Sherry looked just like her daddy. When she came out, I went...
You mean the no hair part?
That was it.
Because she used to tape bows on her head so they would know she was a girl.
I did. But immediately when I looked at her, I said, well, I didn't have a whole lot to do with her. That's her daddy. But when Rochelle was born, she was mine. So we each got one.
When you got pregnant with Rochelle, we'd saved enough money to pay the hospital $300, and because we didn't have any insurance.
That's right.
And so it was about a month before you were ready to give birth to her, and Sherry got really sick with a really high fever, and we did everything we could to get the fever down, but we couldn't, and so we had to take her to the hospital, and they packed her in ice. You remember all
Right.
of that? And it happened twice, and it took all of our money.
Yeah, it did.
And so when it came time for you to go to the hospital, the hospital basically in those days said to me that unless you have the money, you have to pay the money before we'll release her to go home. So you have to pay. And I didn't have any way to come up with that money. I went out, I tried to borrow it, I couldn't borrow it. We didn't have anything to borrow money on. And it's one of the biggest lessons we ever learned, those life lessons, that you were actually in the hospital, had Rochelle, and I went home, and there was a letter there from Tom and Lynn Ming, who were like our parents in the Lord. All they knew, we had just called to say Rochelle was born. They didn't know anything at all. And in there was a check, and they said, we just thought you might need a little help. And the Lord gave back every dime.
It was exactly what we needed,
That had
wasn't
been exactly what we needed
That's right.
to pay that bill
I know.
on that day. We knew God had called us to the ministry and called us to pastor, and so those early days, why I worked in a secular job and tried to do the church, and there were times that you worked. Our whole life's goal was to pastor a church of 200. We really felt like if God could ever do that through us, that'd be about the maximum that we could expect. Well, when we were in Vernonia, Oregon, in that little church when I was just 20, and we took that pastorate,
Yeah.
we weren't there very long, And we discovered that the church had so wanted a full-time pastor that they didn't want us to work, and they gave us $240 a month. And so we lived on that.
Our big money.
But after we were there a few months, one day I opened a bill and it said they were going to shut the electricity off. So I went to the church treasurer who paid all the bills, and I said, "What, is there a mistake here or what?" And she said, "Well, no, we don't have any money." I said, "Well, what do you mean we don't have any money?" "Well, we haven't been able to pay our bills." Because she had been paying us instead of paying the church bills. There wasn't enough money to do both. I said, "I don't want you to tell anybody, but I don't want you to pay us anymore. And I want you to pay all the church bills. When all the church bills get caught up, then we'll talk about whether we get paid again or not." And we didn't have any, I didn't have a job. This was in a town where in the whole church, only 2 people had a job.
That's right.
Everybody else lived on welfare.
Right.
The mill had gone broke. So one night, we took the last package of hamburger out.
That's right.
And made some dinner. And so when dinner was over, we went in and we were carrying the dishes in and doing the dishes in the kitchen. And when we came back out, the front door had glass in it. Sitting on our front porch was
it was a big laundry basket full of food. And that was we didn't know what we were going to do.
And we hadn't said a word to anybody.
No.
No one knew that we didn't have any money, and we didn't have any money to buy food, really.
No.
But God provided. When I was 23, we went to Livermore, California, that's in the San Francisco Bay Area, to start our first church.
Which we did not have a clue what we were doing. But
not a clue. We sold our car and bought a 1950 Ford school bus and painted it orange and yellow. Do you remember that?
Yes,
and
I do.
You had to have a Class 2 driver's license in California, and I couldn't get one because I have a bad eye, and so you had to get the driver's license and drive the bus.
Yes, I remember that well.
And the first 7 Sundays, it broke down 7 Sundays in a row.
It did.
Every week you called me from somewhere.
Always on the way going home, taking the kids home.
And
so I had to call
I'd have to run over there and fix it or whatever to try to get that bus back home.
That was our congregation for the beginning.
We made little flyers and went around and knocked on doors and asked people if they'd let us pick their kids up and take them to church on Sunday. That's how that church started.
Yep.
That was probably the first significant thing in the starting of that church, where we saw the hand of God do what we could not do.
Yes.
It was a great lesson for us, not just then, but still today. It was walking through those early days of that we really learned to trust God. We found out that He could supply our needs.
I think in those early years, it was God was showing us the building of of faith in us, to believe Him for the things that we would yet face. And I just remember the times of financial stress. We just cried out to God. We didn't know what else to do. And God always came through for us. And it was in those days that I believe He was really beginning to lay that foundation of trust and faith in Him, that He would be there no matter what.